Hi there, my name's Nathan Booth, and I've modelled a Parasaurolophus. I've modelled it, textured it, rigged it, animated it, and then put it into UDK, created it as a NPC. This video is going to cover the workflow that I went through, um, the games engines work within UDK that I've done, and also a comparison of industry techniques and workflow. So yeah, to get started, the workflow. What I did was I went through three main stages: design, modeling, and texturing for building the actual mesh, and then also animation and sending it into UDK. So to start, the design phase was mainly brainstorming, testing like different ideas, different skin patterns, and also different color schemes. From this, I went on to model the base mesh of the dinosaur, which would be sent into ZBrush to be sculpted into a high poly. Once this high poly was created, it's sent back into 3ds Max to be retopologized to create a low poly with very similar geometry, so it could be normal mapped. From this, then I went on to begin texturing the model by breaking up the UV islands and then creating a diffuse map, a normal map from the high and low poly, and then also a specular map. After that, just render out a few scenes. But then after that, it was rigging the mesh itself. So it was creating a skeleton to go within the dinosaur, skinning it to the dinosaur, and then using cat animation to make it move. Also editing the envelope so it was properly affected, like so certain bones didn't move too much of the mesh. That in the end resulted in being able to create this walk cycle and also a idle cycle as well. So with both of these working, took the and along with all the texturing and the mesh, took it all into UDK. Within UDK, I created a custom material for the dinosaur, imported it in. Then created an anim set with the motions, an anim tree to control when each motion was played, and also a fizz asset so that it would so that when it did die, it would collapse properly. And in the end, that created the finished result of this dinosaur being able to move around and also being able to collapse properly. So yeah, and also some beauty renders. So that's the pipeline that I went through to produce the model, and it's because it's the pipeline that I've used several times previously to great effect, and also it's a pipeline that's used commonly across lots of different media, like such as in the Epic Games design workflow. They on the UDN, they say for their mesh creation, they create the high poly mesh, a low poly mesh from it, unwrap it, and then create normal maps. Exact same process of my modeling set. Also, you've got this here from Angel Trudeau, who goes through his modeling pipeline, which again very similar to mine, concept and modeling, going on then to take into ZBrush to create a high poly sculpt, and then finally baking out textures and creating normals. The only difference, he used X normal, whereas I used Max's generic normal creator. Also, the company 0 Point Software, they've done a run through of their build up process for the game Interstellar Marines. So they go through the concept, build it up with a block out, then create the high poly probably within something such as ZBrush, a low poly with very similar geometry, and then an unwrap and texturing of the mesh. So you can see that the pipeline that I use is very similar to that of current industry. So within the actual games engine itself, the main things that I produced were this material for the dinosaur. As you can see, I've multiplied out the normal map to create extra so that it comes through more prominent within the texture by multiplying it by a different blue channel. Also, you can see I've increased the spec power so that it shines differently. And for the beauty renders, I also included a Fresnel to add an extra light glow to the outer edges of the mesh, to also to help replicate a similar effect to subsurface scattering. Also, within the text as well as the texture, I created an anim set with both the animations of walking and idle within that both play on the dinosaur. getting those two within max, from max into UDK. Then using an anim tree, I was able to set up when each cycle would play. Like, so it played at the correct time, so it'd walk when it was meant to walk and stand still when it was meant to stand still. But yeah, for the physics asset that I created for the dinosaur, I had to do quite a little bit of editing because some of the bounding boxes for the bones were extremely large, such as the tail and the head. They both needed rescaling, and also there was some conflict within like the head and neck, which was causing a lot of distortion. So I had to make them a lot more rigid, along with some of the bones within the legs. So it's more of a rigid skeleton, so it collapses properly as it's meant to. So that's the UDK section. Oh, and also to create a turntable, I used a UDK matinee sequence to rotate the dinosaur. I also had a 3-point lighting and a camera as well to record it from. But so yes, that was my matinee use. So finally onto the comparison with industry. So I've looked across like lots of different media. You've got these Julian Romero sculpts of lots of different dinosaurs. You can see there he has done the Parasaurolophus, and it is a very high detailed sculpt. You can see he's gone for more of a chicken skin like material, with light scales going across rather than the heavier scales that I've chose in certain regions. Also his is a very high detail, like a lot more depth than what mine has. And he's got his demo reel. In Primal Rage, I looked at some of the base animations, anatomy settings, things like that, to fully understand the dinosaur. Then within Jurassic Park as well, there's a lot of good animation for some of the dinosaurs, the smoothness and the effects used. So that was worth looking into. And also Kevin Bryant has done this very high detailed sculpt of the dinosaur. His is more of a beauty render though, his asset not really an asset that would go into a game in its current state. And also Louis Poifer, who's worked on these for Ubisoft for the Nintendo Wii. You can see they're a lot less detailed, but have a still a decent diffuse going across. Probably no normal map. So in summary, across all those, if you compare those to my dinosaur, you could say that mine does lack quality compared to some of the high poly sculpts. However, mine's more optimized to work within a games engine, so probably it's more on par with some of the low gen consoles that we've currently got going today, because it's only 8,000 tries with under the cap of 12. So that's one area. And then also when producing the dinosaur, one thing that I could have done maybe differently, which I probably would do if I could go back, would be to properly implement subsurface scattering to help stop some of these like shiny light points that appeared on the mesh, making it a bit too reflective. A bit of subsurface scattering, spreading it across properly, would probably have increased the mesh's detail. But apart from that, that's all. Every website that I've gone on and mentioned, link will be in the description. Yeah, and thanks for watching. I've been Nathan Booth, student number B0052698.